Okay, Lynn, I'm going to shift away from some of the national questions to entertain some questions from the states. And the first question, I better take this out of my mouth. I need sugar when I do this. I can't help it. Oh, don't worry about it. Okay, here we go. This question comes from the Mid-Atlantic Corridor, and it is as follows. Lynn, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that there has been a great deal of discussion about state bankruptcy. And this really was thrown into high gear with a piece in the New York Times this week about a looming effort from House Republicans to allow states to enter into bankruptcy and basically screw public workers out of their pensions. Some of us feel particularly guilty about this because the fact is that the question of state bankruptcy was a question that we first took up back in 2006, 2007, when we were talking about the HBPA. And one of the things that we were addressing at the time was not state bankruptcy as such, but essentially the equivalent of what I guess you would call debt moratoria, which we didn't want to call debt moratoria. But he then goes on to say, there are a couple of things about this whole discussion that have occurred to me and some of the people that I have been working with. And that is whether the Republicans actually are serious about bankruptcy for the states, or if just talking about bankruptcy for the states is the entire strategy. Why do I say this? Well, I say it because all of the talk about state bankruptcy raises borrowing costs and will greatly enrich banks. As long as you keep a balance between talking about bankruptcy and actually following through on it, you create a premium that banks can collect on cash-strapped states. Even if they're not doing the lending themselves, they run the instruments that deliver the debt in the form of bonds to institutional investors or even individuals. Increasing those borrowing rates help the banks get money, basically, off of pure rumor, and taxpayers in the states pay the price. It's a pure subsidy to the banks. The more I think about it, the more I think that Republicans have been told by the bank lobby and by Wall Street to just talk about bankruptcy for the states to give them a little extra profit. I don't think that they actually want it to happen. I may be getting paranoid, but I'd really like you to comment on this.
They're quite serious about state bankruptcy. Absolutely. They intend to destroy the United States. That's what they're doing. This is not... why do we fall for this stuff? Of course they intend to go to state bankruptcy. What's the alternative? The alternative is shut down Wall Street. Why do we have a problem? Because of Wall Street. Look, you could wipe out every bank on Wall Street and the United States would come out nice and safely alive. You could wipe out every... What we need is a credit system. How do you think we started in Massachusetts? With a credit system. The little state of Massachusetts at that time was outproducing England in terms of quality of product, in terms of performance. The United States back in these periods was outproducing England in terms of productivity of labor. Oh, you had a few industries there. Huh? The problem is get rid of this nonsense. If you bankrupt the states, once you start the road of bankrupting the states, where are you back to? Go back to 1787. What happened in 1787 is when Hamilton devised the solution for the bankruptcy of the states. And this solution was called the preamble of the U.S. federal Constitution. It's still our Constitution. We don't bankrupt the states, we bankrupt the bad banks. We bankrupt the swindlers. What is Wall Street doing, for example? What is the Federal Reserve System doing? It's running a gambling house with U.S. dollars. It's printing U.S. dollars as phony currency, as monopoly money. Print more monopoly money. And spend it on what? On betting. On what? On odds. On margins. And that's what the Federal Reserve System is doing. That's what was being done with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which is what we were dealing with in 2007. The bankruptcy of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. They were both bankrupt. Why were they bankrupt? Because of big help from Alan Greenspan. What did we go into? Alan Greenspan went really into the gambling business. So we have gambling losses. Wall Street is suffering from gambling losses. The states of the United States, the individual sovereign states, are suffering from being sucked into gambling games, which are not legitimate. And they use a monetary system as a cover for this. I, as president, would be easily able, with the support of all these angry people in the states, to have put through the action which would simply wipe all that money off the books. By doing that, and by not obliging ourselves to bail out gambling debts, we would have the trillions of dollars needed to get the United States economy moving again. And what I laid out in this thing, which, pardon my eyesight, but what I laid out is a solution. Glass-Steagall. What happens to the gambling debts? Ha ha ha. Got to watch out for the mafia. They get upset with you with that one. So, we can, just think about NWAPA. We talk about, you know what 7.5 million jobs of an engineering, public works engineering capability mean for every part of the United States? Look, we have to build a modern high technology rail system to deliver product which is going into the mountains out there for NWAPA. We have to haul this stuff. We're hauling more weight and building more height in terms of dams and everything else than you ever heard of before. 7.5 million people building the nuclear industry, building all these systems, and building NWAPA, the greatest water system the planet has ever known. We're taking the core of the U.S. labor force, what's still a labor force, and we're putting it suddenly all back to work. We're canceling all gambling debts. Do you think we have to bail out, put states into bankruptcy? No. We have to put a lot of banks into bankruptcy. Because what they did is they set up a gambling racket. And we're indebted to monopoly money operated by gambling rackets. What did they do? They went to various parts of the place. They said, we're going to have set up gambling in this state. gambling in that state, gambling in this state. Huh? They went to Indian reservations and used the Indian reservations as a ploy for setting up gambling industries. And the Shylocks would come in there, run the gambling industry, loot the Indians, deplete, rape them practically, and move on to the next one. Gambling debts. No, there's nothing here, nothing at all. That's the way you have to look at it. We're a bunch of suckers, but we're going to become unsuckers. And a lot of people are going to get shocked because, well, suppose we don't win. Okay. A lot of people are going to be dead. Most of the people are going to be dead. You have no choice. You have no choice. What I've indicated is the only choice. And MOAPA is the key to it. 7.5 million jobs, which is what I know safely we can guarantee if the project is launched. 7.5 million jobs, including high-tech jobs beyond anything you've imagined. It will require people who are in my age group, the retired age group, so-called, because they're the only people that have the knowledge and how to do this, direct it. But we have a lot of people still left from the auto industry and other things who have engineering skills, who can carry out the job, and who can train the labor force for the rest of it. We can take our young people who are wasting in the sidelines, young people who are going on the 25 age group, 18-25 age group. We can put them into work. We can open up the equivalent of CCC camps. We can train these people. We've got plenty of projects for them. Take them out of crime and slime, and put them back into dignity again. Make life have a meaning for them. We can easily, if we have the will, we still have the opportunity, if we have the will to do so. If we can get the complicity of at least some people in our government to make sure this happens. What I've laid out as a draft on the statement today, what I've laid out is sufficient to solve the problem. If you want to solve the problem, do it. What I'm doing will solve the problem. Put the other things to one side. They're trash. Bad habits, which the population has built up over several generations since Franklin Roosevelt. And while my generation, some of it is still alive, we can still save this nation and save civilization. We just have to decide we're going to do it.